Let's go. Yes, I know. And this wasn't Siri. All right. Okay, guys. Let's get started. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna first share a video with you all. I'm gonna please ask it to everyone get on mute. Just do the housekeeping and let's go. Hit the button. Boom.
Design is leadership.
In recent years, we've begun to see that the most successful organizations are the ones that infuse their business with design at the core.
In our 12-week program, you will hear from and interact with some of the world's most highly regarded design and innovation leaders from across the globe. Our exclusive masterclass sessions will give you insights into how design leaders think and act in order to elevate design in their own organizations to deliver exceptional outcomes.
You will participate in more hands-on workshops with design leaders from the region, in which you'll be a deep dive into some of the theory and practical activities behind the masterclass topics.
The Design Leadership Program is for those who want to learn how to manage and grow their team, develop their design vision, act as an advocate and catalyst for design within their organization, and generally navigate the challenging yet rewarding world of design leadership. We know that the realm of design is constantly evolving.
Our biggest goal is to help you develop the skills needed to become a great design leader who can continue to navigate the ever-changing world of business and society over the next decade.
We hope to see you in Season 2 of the Design Leadership Program.
So welcome, everyone. I'm gonna start it here to say welcome to Design Leadership. My name is Erico Lisboa, and I'm supporting you guys here today to hosting the Design Leadership Program. And it would be nice to have to you guys put like on a chat where you come from and which city you are, so we know a little bit more about you. So Echoes is an independent and global innovation lab driven by design. We have three business models. The one that the School of Design Thinking is the one that's hosting the event today. We have also the innovation projects and the ventures. We help business create value and innovate for good. We help people and organizations master the innovation mindsets, skills, and tools. We are global. We are present in Portugal, also in Italy, Australia, Brazil, US, and we are expanding every day. We are already helping more than 40,000 professionals in our campus back in Rio and Sao Paulo. We also have more than 70,000 people get skilled and certified with our online courses. And we also have more than 150 projects developed. We also are part of the Global Design Thinking Alliance, which we are very, very, very proud to be part of it. And we are the only innovation lab that's part of this, the Global Design Thinking Alliance. We having the Design Leadership Program starting soon, which today we're having the Firesession. And the Design Leadership Program, you're going to be learning how the top global leaders, you're going to be learning from them how we can reach and get to the next steps in your design leadership career. You're going to be learning a lot of things over there, right? You're going to be learning about how you can articulate the value of design, you're shaping the teams and the cultures, design ethics, the impact, the shaping organizations, teams, and how we can implement design over there. The learning experience on the design leadership is pretty good. I've been in the market for the past 20 years, and I can tell you, that this is the best by far program that's in the market today. You're going to be learning from so many great names, so heavyweights, and you have two of them here today as well. They're not actually going to be on the design leadership program, but we are on a fire session with Vanita and Apala. The program starts in 2 weeks' time. So this 2 weeks' time is going to be pretty much like 2 weeks in 3 days, something like that. It's going to be from May to the August the 3rd. It's a 12 weeks program. And we're going to have a series of global masterclasses and local workshops. Okay, today we're going to be building a case for design leadership in organizations. And here we go, that's the fire session. We're going to be having here today with us, a pleasure to have here today, Vanita Sankar, which is design strategist and transformation consultants, Apala Lahiri Chavan, which is a co-founder of the Human Factors International and Chief Design Officer. And me, I'm Erico Lisboa. I'm the business design lead from APAC here at Echoes. Before we get started, actually, let's just come back here a little bit and let's get our hosts to talk a little bit about themselves and how they come to the design leadership. Just a quick brief, guys, and then we jump to the fire sessions, if that's okay. Can we start with Vanita? You're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Erico and Echoes Innovation. It's my absolute pleasure to be here in this session. Good morning, good evening, everyone from wherever you're joining, and I'm delighted to co-facilitate this session on building a case for design leadership in organizations. And for those of you who don't know me, Erico just introduced me. I'm Vanita, design strategist and transformation consultant, also an educator for design thinking and innovation. Joining me here is a very senior design professional, Apala Shaban, and it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to introduce her. Apala Shaban is the co-founder of Human Factors International in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, and Australia, and the Chief Design Officer. Her passion is to envision how user experience can be a change agent, using digital channels. She is also fascinated by changes in user experience across time and space. Apala is an award-winning designer, having won the International Audi Design Award. She has co-authored the book Institutionalization of UX, a step-by-step guide to a user experience practice with Dr. Eric Schaffer. She's also co-edited the book Innovative Solutions, What Designers Need to Know for Today's Emerging Markets. And her TED Talk on the 3 laws of user experience is a super hit. She was invited to speak on the user experience design and AI for Good conference in 2017, organized by United Nations. And her articles regularly appear in the top 10 UX articles related to international lists. She's a member of the ACM Publications Board. Welcome, Apala. I think we are very, very delighted to have you here. You're muted. You're muted.
You're on mute.
Thanks,
Wow.
thanks, Vanita, for that wonderful introduction. Thanks, Erico and Ecos. So, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Thanks. Looking forward to the conversation.
So moving on without further ado, I think before we get into the discussion, which is designing, which is going to be about building a case for design leadership, I think it's very important for us to define design leadership and why it is important to build a case for design leadership in organizations and why it is important more than ever before. So design as a discipline, we've come a long way with design, and it's evolved from form to function to now weaving into the strategic fabric of organizations and systems at all levels. And we believe that it's the right tool to create desired futures because it not only helps us achieve human centricity, but if rightly done, it can also help us to think about larger issues like ethics, sustainability, and the environment. And so more than ever before, I think it's very important for us now to create systems, capabilities, and leadership in organizations that will enable us and to drive design centricity. While we see that many organizations are increasingly adapting to design, I think we still have a long way to go before we can embed a design culture in organizations. And it takes immense commitment, investment, and engagement to drive design centricity. And for this, we really need a strong leadership. Not just leadership, but we need the right kind of tools and platforms to prepare design leaders to gear up for this vision. And so how do we drive this kind of design culture in traditional environments? How do we move the needle, and how do we raise the impact of design? And how do we nurture and prepare design leaders? I think these are some of the aspects that we will be covering in our discussion today. And so coming to you, Apala. So tell us, given your experience in the field, you probably have witnessed this change from, change and the transition of design in parts and in whole, I would like to say, right? So you've seen design as an external resource, as part of the organizations, now design at the core, and design being integrated in all aspects of organizations today. So how do you see this transition? And tell us about your journey from a design practitioner to a design leader, your experiences in driving design centricity in various organizations.
Sure. That takes me back, a flashback into the journey that has been. I think when I think back, and it's been 22 years that I've, been with HFI, co-founded the Asia-Pac operations. But before that, I started suddenly one day. I used to be in coding. I used to be involved in, at that point, Visual Basic coding, which was maybe 26 years ago. And suddenly one day it kind of struck me that why is it that and I used to work for a very large, one of the largest systems integrators in India. And why is it that we do all this coding and all the coders are just wonderful people and everything, but then the users, the end users seem to be constantly calling and saying, oh, please help, I can't do this and this is going wrong. And then all these escalations and running to help. Hey, what's the problem? Why does this happen? And that led me to sort of investigate what can be done. And that's how I discovered this entire field of user-centered design all those decades ago, and sort of shifted and started to, I did a master's program and all. When I came, that was in London. When I came back to India, I was like, okay, I'm going to start my own company and we are going to change everything and everybody is going to become user-centered. Guess what? That really wasn't the case. As I went into technology organizations who I was familiar with, and I have started an organization, it's going to make everything user-centered. Your systems are going to be user-centered. I can work with you. And they would ask me about, okay, what is this user-centered thing that you're talking about? And then as they discovered that I used to do Visual Basic coding in a previous life, they were like, okay, forget about all the user-centered stuff. Can you just, we need Visual Basic coders. Can you just come on board? From that time, 2.5 decades ago, I think it's been a most gratifying journey. Today, it has been filled with, it has its share of frustrations. So what I find that really worked is that once I realized that there's a basic lack of awareness about design centricity. What does it mean? It doesn't mean that I'm an artist who comes in and I will, whimsically do stuff. It doesn't mean that, because that was the impression. So the first thing that helped was to start doing awareness programs. And I saw a shift from awareness. Once there was this understanding that design is also based on science, at least the perspective that, I had learned, and also in HFI that we drive, is it's a combination. Design is a combination of science and art. And the science part of it lends itself to very tangible ways of manifesting design problems, moving them to solutions that can be tracked, that can be measured. Once that awareness was there, there was much more interest in saying, oh, really? You mean design can bring very tangible changes? From the training programs and awareness building came the first interest in just projects, like, okay, fine, you've been telling us you've done this awareness program. Can you help apply some of those principles that you're talking about to our website? I remember it from my journey in HFI, one of the first things was from one of the largest banks in India, who very sort of, with some skepticism said, okay, now apply those principles that you were talking about for the last 2 days with all of us to our website. Tell us what could be different, because we don't think there really is anything that can be different. That was another very magic moment or turning point, because once one did an assessment using principles from user experience design, that created an aha in, oh, really? You mean if you just put red and blue colors together, then there is a challenge with the human visual system, and it leads to what's called chromatic aberration. That's why we are getting complaints about people can't read stuff. We couldn't understand why. It's a basic principle. So that understanding that you can apply, and here, see, you can change things. So from that, wanting to do an evaluation to see what's going on, then saying, oh, can we implement some of these recommendations? And can we then, you've been saying we can measure, whether things change. Okay, show us how we can measure. So to run usability tests for stakeholders to see how end users are coming in and interacting, and where it's successful because of changes made, where there are still pain points. That was the other turning point. So it was all about, sort of opening the door to seeing very concrete value propositions, and not just that, I can make it look pretty, to go beyond that and to see that. Once the evidence was there, so to speak, then came the next thing of, okay, can we redesign everything? So it was like awareness, slight skepticism, okay, show, apply what you're saying, then, okay, test, let's see if things are better. Then, oh, let's redesign everything. Then came, that was, of course, I make it sound like it was in an instant. It was 10 years before, there was that situation where, particularly the banking sector, in my experience, it was the banking sector, no matter where we worked, it was the banking sector that was sort of ahead of the curve in wanting to adopt the sort of experiment with the value of design in business. And so from 10 years, which is now maybe 15 years ago, we started seeing the various organizations talk about, okay, now that, we've seen that we can change things according to design principles. We see that there are certain definite changes happening to how end users are sticking on, how they're coming back, they're not calling the call centers, etc. We can see that. We'd like to build our own UX practice. That was interesting. That was the start, I feel, in my experience, of a moment when we knew design was now in there and it was only going to grow. So wanting, once, there was that desire that we want a team, then came everything. Then came, okay, how do we integrate this? Then all the questions of, you need to have executive champion, you need to have a defined process, you need to train staff, you need to hire trained staff, you need to define success criteria, you need to measure and track, you need to do continuous improvements, you need to have design systems at that time, standards, patterns, you need to have governance of how this design team you're setting up is going to work with the rest of the organization. All these questions we were able to put on the table and guide. But because there was now interest and buy-in, so I feel the journey started with just clarity and awareness, and then being able to see for business folks in an organization that you can measure and you can see, did conversion go up? Did retention go up? Did time taken to go from, starting to open an account to being able to open an account? Did the time go from 15 minutes with 2 calls to the call center to 3 minutes with no calls to the call center? These were very important reasons to milestones for shifting the value of why design should be there. The positivity and embracing of design was very dependent on being able to show these kinds of values. And today, most of the engagements, I see around, there are design teams, and if there are not a strong design team inside an organization, there is always an ask from the organization, can we get a managed service team? It's amazing to see this. Of course, it's unevenly distributed still. There are sectors like banking, healthcare pivoted majorly because of COVID, because everything had to go telehealth. So there are some sectors who are really gone ahead with no turning back. Some sectors, maybe manufacturing, etc., are still sort of trying to figure out in their situation, how does design really help? But that's what I've sort of seen.
That's very interesting. And as you open up the flashback, my flashback also opened up, because I think 20 years back, it was you who introduced me into this world of design through this workshop that you did for our organization as well. And I must say that as you've transitioned through your journey, I have also kind of transitioned in my profession, right from moving to product design to, measuring for call centers, to all of this. And so thank you for laying out this journey very beautifully, and also to have, kind of walked us through. I think building awareness is the key to starting anything, right? And then showing them. I think you've really followed the design process itself, right? I mean, right from building awareness to kind of experimenting to kind of, working, iterating, and then helping organizations redesign this whole process and system, and putting heuristics and design systems in place. I think you've really had an amazing journey, Apala, and thanks for sharing that with us, I must say. So now we see that, we are right now, we have moved away from form. I think people are realizing that design is beyond form, and it's a strategic aspect of businesses, right? And we have come a long way, I would say, in terms of creating value, right, like you rightly said. And now we also know, and businesses are also realizing that design-centric organizations are truly reaping the benefits of investing in the practice and building capabilities. But we also see, and like you said in your response, we also see that we have a long way to go, and there is unevenness here, and there are many organizations yet to catch up, even at a very early design stage, and they are outsourcing design as well, right? So what are some practices, and practical advice that you would like to give to, when we would like to move the needle from organizations being interested to, I would say, committed to building more engagement and embed this design culture as part of the organizations?
I feel that, again, to go back to the old story of awareness and training. So various aspects of what is design, what is user-centered design, what is design thinking, how can these kinds of, ways of looking at problems, how can they help the organization spreading that awareness? I mean, we can't have enough of that. Every time I feel, this organization has had enough of training awareness, I'm wrong. So having that, being at it, is very important. And I think it's very important sometimes to customize the awareness programs to that organization, because it's easier, of course, to have a standard sort of workshop or course curriculum and offer that. But in some cases, I think some organizations really need a customized lens for them to see that, oh, so far we were saying, yeah, design is wonderful, but it's not for us. We only do, things that are meant for staff. It's all enterprise stuff. We can't even, we don't even know who these end users are. It's not a B2C. I still hear that from some organizations. We don't do B2C stuff, and it's all B2B, and maybe we don't really need it. That's the thing. That's where I think to customize the way one builds the awareness is very important, to show, in your specific case, see, these are two scenarios where this is how design thinking could change the way you even formulate the problem statements. And these are design principles that would help you in crafting what you are offering to even enterprises. So that customization, it takes a little bit of time to understand that organization in order to do that. But I think that's very important to wake up anyone who still doesn't quite believe that this is worth committing to. And then if there is already some interest and one has seen that, this organization, there's somebody in there who's trying to say, hey, we must move into being more user-centered, design-centric, etc. But there's lack of buy-in, maybe from the C-level, from senior stakeholders. In that situation, I think it's very important to be able to have a way to reach the most senior level. I found that the other thing that helps in, actual practice building, to say, okay, I'll do a 2-hour session with the C-level. Now that session is very different. I'm not particularly going to talk in detail about design principles. I'm going to talk about value to business, with, showing them cases where, see, for this particular organization, once they applied design, this is how much leads went up from their website or app. This is how retention and conversion and retention went up. This is how their training costs went down. All of these things, concrete things, are very important then to also everybody else in the organization then gets a trickle down of, you've been saying, C-level people will then tell others, you've been saying design is really about aesthetics. No, we just realized that there are ways to really change the business outcomes for us. That's important. And in maturing a practice, once there is already some sort of a design team working, I think there are many maturity models, just like there is the CMM model that organizations have used to build competency maturity, right? There's CMM level 1 to 5. And similarly, there are usability maturity models, which are, now can be applied to any kind of design-centric operation, where there's from level 1, which is when you're just starting out thinking about, integrating design, to level 4 and 5, where you've got to have a certain set of criteria. Do you have a knowledge management system for design? Do you have governance structures? Do you have defined methods? Do you have regular upskilling and training for your design staff? Do you have regular meetups with your C-level people to brief them with a dashboard about what is the value you've been adding in the last, in every quarter? So these kinds of artifacts and processes gradually have to be put in one by one to reach that maturity level. And once you reach maturity level 4, the organization or its DNA has started to shift, because there has had to be work in rethinking, because they've, the organization has seen the value of, okay, we were maturity level 1, and we saw that we got some value. We invested in getting more of the, okay, let's see how structurally, how should we have our team? There are best practices in terms of structuring your design team in a large organization. We followed that practice and we see the benefit. There's less chaos. There's less siloed ways of operation. It's integrated. We were told to have a design ops. Yes, design ops is really helping us crack problems and efficiently move from start to finish. So once, these step-by-step sort of elements are introduced, then there is the strengthening and the complete integration of design and the way of how design can be always in the forefront, and users can always be in the forefront.
I think designing this entire process is a design problem by itself, and isn't it? And I think that's my key takeaway. And there's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
And understanding the specific organization that we are trying to build for, customizing it for them, and most importantly, I think it's in the way we are able to very professionally articulate the value of design, using metrics, systems, tracking mechanisms, and it is in how we are, not like come we'll design something, but really having it done at a professional level. I think that is the key takeaway for us, in terms of, and using different maturity models, and maybe if required also, look at business models, look at other disciplines and how they have matured. I think these are all aspects that will help us think about designing this whole approach of building design as a, and if design wants to be and if we want design to be at a taken seriously at a strategic level, I think we'll also have to speak in that language.
Definitely.
That's amazing, amazing, guys. I think like we covered this topic, the topic number 1 and topic number 2 as well, design as a strategic element of the business. I'm going to just jump in now to the number 3, raising the impact of design, because we just talked about the maturity as well. But Vanilla?
Yeah, so I think, one of, and what prompted this question, Apala, was, while we say, all of this, when we say, building capabilities, building systems, tracking mechanisms and everything, how do we, so 2 questions, right? Today, are we prepared? And from your experience, I mean, you handle design projects to various countries, and you're seeing design professionals. One is, are we prepared adequately to gear up to this vision? 2 is, how do we prepare design leaders to gear up to this? And how do we actually raise the impact of design in organizations through these methods? Because I think as design practitioners, the only design practitioners and people who really believe in the value of design can drive this change. So how would you, explain this?
Okay, yeah, I think I'll look at 2 very different yet, of course, related topics in terms of raising the impact of design in organizations.
Yeah, so just give us more. Give us more. I'm in love with what you're saying.
Okay. So one is about the understanding and integrating of measurement. And what has helped a lot is you will be aware of, design indices. There's the Design Management Institute, which has been putting out a design index for the last few years. McKinsey started to put out a design index of their own in the last maybe 4 or 5 years. What these have done is they both have similar objectives to show how organizations that have invested in design and have made design an integral part of their, sort of business operations, their processes, how they have performed better than those who have not invested, have performed better in terms of returns on investment, in providing higher shareholder value. Share prices are better, they're doing better in the market. Both of these organizations have put that out based on their surveys and their studies. And what that does is immediately it drives home the point of impact. That, oh my God, for someone who's running a business and is looking at many aspects of the business, and design is one aspect, but suddenly you see that McKinsey is saying, hey, if the design index, if you perform higher on the design index by doing these things, which is having a process, investing in design people, having a design organization, the chances are your share prices will be higher than your competition or others.
Yeah,
that wakes up everybody about the impact of design. So I think those kinds of indices, those new ways of looking at design that are now on the radar has really helped all of us in the community to talk about the impact of design in a more concrete way. That's one thing. But then comes the other issue of, are we as a set of professionals, as a community, are we ready? If the organizations are sort of gearing up and saying, we are excited, are we ready? Now, that's a much more complicated question. And that's totally uneven in how the answer is distributed across the world, because there are some countries, like the US or like, say, Western Europe, where because of the historic trajectory of the Industrial Revolution, industrial design coming from that, ergonomics coming from that, and from ergonomics in factory production and using the Taylorist concepts of efficient management, all that has been in place for 60, 70 years. And then that has very naturally then led to more design centricity. Hence, there are programs in universities to prepare for designers, to prepare for a design career, design management courses to prepare for those who are going to be in that kind of design management role. All of those things are in place. But in many other countries, say like India, other countries across the globe, in Africa, etc., where we haven't had that kind of a journey, where industrialization has led to requirements of efficiency, etc. It hasn't been. We've been more of an agricultural economy. We've had more info. We still have, say, in India, an informal sector, which is larger than the formal sector. So therefore, our infrastructure for design education has taken off only in the last maybe 7-8 years, when, just speaking of India, I see a proliferation of design courses, programs to get ready and be able to have designers, be available. That's only happened now. So you can imagine then design leadership, the training, the upskilling for that is also been lagging behind a little. Now, what do you need for being prepared at a leadership level, say, to, even competencies for designers? So I think there are some things are common in terms of, just working in a team, in an organization, whether you're a designer or not, there are some common things. But if you're a designer and you're going to be making an impact in a large or small organization where you're embedded as a team member working on design of products or services, collaborative, creative collaboration, very important. I hear this again and again, that, collaboration between, say, dev or engineering and product and design is critical. And engineering and product are sometimes more aligned because they have similar ways in which they look at, sort of crafting a solution. Design, in that triage, design is sometimes a little bit like, oh, but you should be asking us right up front, because we can tell you what the end users really want more than what you think you need to build. But there has to be a really good way of collaborating instead of the tension and the conflict. And some have absolutely cracked it. But if there's a showstopper in us being able to multiply and show the impact of design, collaborating and understanding how to collaborate is really, really key. And designers are naturally actually more prone to be open to collaboration. So it's just a matter of making it clear how you collaborate with other disciplines, because you've been collaborating with others like you, but now suddenly you have to collaborate with somebody who thinks very differently. How does that happen? So we need that skill to be really, really important. And of course, as designers, our ability to ask questions, to be critically questioned when when somebody's saying there's a roadmap and we are going to build, for example, we were just working with somebody who said we have to build this kind of payment system because of COVID, it's very necessary. So the design team in that mix, one of the leaders said, are you sure, though, that our end users are going to be able to use this channel and digitally pay because of these reasons? So it seems theoretically a very good idea, but have we put the last mile in place for this to happen? That's the kind of the question from the perspective of the environment of the user, we must be able to ask, and early on to ask and to proactively sort out what could be a glitch, or is this not even the right solution? Is it something else? To do that early on brings so much value, instead of being, okay, fine. So we are going to build this. Now I'm going to look at how to wireframe this better. No, of course that's important. But the value is if you make sure that the organization is building the right thing. It's no point building an amazing thing, but it's the wrong thing. Nobody's going to use it. So I think that is very important for designers to bring in. Leaders is a different thing, but I don't know if you want me to go into design leadership sort of question.
No, but I think what is that you've obviously, gotten into the depth of it, that's raising a lot more questions, but I think in the interest of time, what I think the key aspect that I see from here is to be able to think like a real leader, right? I mean, think from an organization perspective. How is it going to really create impact? How is it going to impact, let's say, your share price if you invest in design? Or how is it going to yield the ROI that a senior leader is think? So, thinking like you are running an organization, but as a designer, in a designer capacity. I think that to me is my key takeaway here. And I also see where you're coming from in terms of education, because I think when I started like 20 years back, there was no formal design education or anything like that, or there was, but it was more from, it was more from a borrowed discipline. It was very new in IT companies, like, and we didn't have enough networks. We didn't, have the kind of conversations that we are having today. So we were all left to, sort it out for ourselves and figure it out ourselves. And luckily, some of us who had good leaders or good management that was able to invest in workshops and invest in education and help us, gear up to this challenge, we kind of worked through. But for the others, it was, I mean, some of them I know, some of my peers also moved on to other disciplines, and, they only carried aspects of design with them for lack of proper leadership. So I think the key takeaway here is that as we build education, as we build, the right kind of education, like of course is doing design leadership today, right? I mean, I think all of this will gradually bridge the gap that is required, and hopefully we should see, more of design in organizations that are yet to catch up as well. And so that brings me to the next question, Apala. What qualities do you think that a design leader must possess?
Yeah, I think that's such an important question. And, I've been sort of, grappling with that for a long time to fine tune what is it that one needs as one takes on a design leadership role, which is a little bit different from being designer and doing the work. And, it's everybody's choice, right? You want to be a design leader or not. It's not like you have to be, but if one wants to and has decided that that's where I want to go, then I think there are some things you have to do to step out of the designer doing my design work, my creative, satisfying my creative, sort of ways of thinking. There's more than that. So some things that are very important as a design leader, I think you then have to start spending more time with cross-functional leaders and not with other design leaders like you. It's very important to understand how design is seen and is contributing or not, and what is going on in other functions. What are those functions? How do they work? What are their problems? So understanding business across an organization becomes critical for a design leader. And also, along with that, being able to, tell stories about the value of design and influence those who are in other functions who may not have that much of a direct contact with design and its outcomes. As a leader, the storytelling of value is extremely important. So you've got to be a major storyteller based on experiences that you're having right there and then, and be able to convince people and influence people to want to, integrate and have more of design in their own functions or in areas of the organization or questions that the organization thought couldn't be solved with the help of design. The other important thing, and this has always been a little bit of a sort of controversial thing, that as a design leader, do you need to have super competency in design itself? Can you be a design leader if you're not a really, really brilliant designer? And the question, interestingly, is that you don't have to always be a brilliant designer yourself, but you have to understand the big picture, be able to ask the big questions very quickly. You may not be the person who can take that question, if that's agreed as an important question, to the actual design outcome, designing the details. You may not be really, really good at that, but being able to ask those questions, being able to spot the opportunity, being able to say this, we can connect these dots by doing this kind of design work, that's very important. I feel it's also naturally, it is an added bonus if one as a design leader has at least one area of competency, whether it's in innovation, whether it's in research, design research, or it's an actual design, or it's in teaching about design. A competency in any of these areas is inspirational for one's design team. So they can see that, oh, you may not be the person who designs things, but you're an amazing researcher, or you're an amazing innovation person, or you're an amazing instructor. You teach so well, so something has to be there to inspire. And got to be multidisciplinary. As a design leader, think multidisciplinary. Think always from which discipline can I draw? Can I draw from anthropology? Can I draw from other areas, from architecture, physical architecture? Can I draw from other areas and take ideas or invite people who are from other disciplines? I have found so much of amazing stuff happening once one invites multidisciplinary people, and hence multidisciplinary thinking. It's for the design leader to be really multidisciplinary and embrace ideas from different disciplines. To think about the future, always keep an eye on future models. What's going on? Trends in terms of technology, trends in terms of people. People are changing in their behavior. Have a pulse on that, so that it is so useful to be able to, in a meeting when you're trying to speak with C-level or senior people across different functions, to be able to say, do you know that this particular trend is going to mean that we have to change this part of our business model? That really makes people pay attention. So being able to look at the future and what's going on, what's emerging on the horizon, very important. Other than that, I always tell anybody who's wanting to be a design leader, please, not only should you read, please continue to read what's the latest coming, thinking that's surfacing. Write, become somebody who publishes, blogs, or if not, sort of conference papers and all, but blogs regularly. Write. That really hones your own thinking about who you are, and it allows you to be a thought leader. Speak at sessions. So these are sometimes, design leaders think that these are not so important. It's very important to be able to be out there, talk, and spread the ideas you have, and be seen, therefore, as somebody with something that's a little different in what you're saying. So I think these are very important. In this day and age, inclusivity, to know how to do inclusive, ways of design is so critical. With COVID, particularly, the world has woken up to divisions and unfairness in how, healthcare or whatever, everything that has happened in these last 2 years has made it imperative that we understand, are we really being able to provide the product and service to everybody who needs it? Is there a different business model to reach people who may have constraints in terms of money? But can one think about how to reach them? So that thinking, being able to always have that empathy for end users, that's at the core. If I'm just about my own creative fulfillment, I really cannot, be a design leader because I have to always be thinking about all the people that this organization ultimately is going to reach out to. I should be their advocate. I should be a step ahead to say, you know what? End users are looking for this thing. I have, from my research and everything. So can we build this? Can we validate whether this is whether what I'm saying is right? And can we to put those ideas on the table on behalf of the user population, because technology will speak for technology, for the latest in technology that can make things more efficient, quick. Product will speak about the product's journey and how, you can release something quickly, all of those things. Who is going to bring in that perspective about what is it that the whole world is now thinking and moving? Sometimes other functions may miss that, and they'll value a design leader bringing this on the table.
Lovely. And I think one of the things is also thought leadership, right? I mean, using all of what you have, all your using, all the expressions, which is very required, and which is, I would say, a critical aspect of being a leader. And also being, it's about really having something to say, really, being able to add value to the world, right? I mean, rather than about ourselves, I think as design leaders, we also think about the people. And somewhere, and your, response also brought up some questions in my mind about how design centricity design should actually move from even people to thinking about environment. The 3 circles, right? Yeah. Will also have a sustainability aspect to it. So I think these are all aspects that probably will add on to us contributing a lot more, I mean, as much as we are doing. And I would like to invite Eriko also in case he has some questions. But before that, Eriko, I'm going to just ask her one very, a question that I've been wanting to ask her. Apala, what are your thoughts about designers becoming, let's say, a CEO or a chief growth officer?
Absolutely. Oh my God, that's just, I mean, that is what should happen. So yes.
Here's a good question, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good provocation that why should one think of designers only going up to, thinking of chief design officer, etc. What about being the CEO and of course CEO, etc. And, when you say that, well, there are examples of designers who were designers in their past life, and then they founded an organization and they had to be everything. They had to be the CEO, and some of them have done so well. So I know for sure that Flickr and I think Pinterest, if I'm not mistaken, both founders were actually designers. And they had that idea, and then they found that organization, and they had to put on so many different hats, and obviously they did very successfully. So I think, and those are just 2. I mean, I just don't remember those 2, but there's so many. I know so many designers who have founded their own, consulting organizations, etc. The moment you do that, you're wearing all those hats. So if that's possible, then in an organization where you work, you can also, aspire if you wish to.
You think maybe work like you just appear over there in the middle of like this the senior managers, and you say like, hey guys, I'm the guy that I'm the person with my team or whatever that can glue everything. So design is when you can pretty much like works like a glue with all the other capabilities that you have around the company. And that's how you think, that's how you believe that works.
I think that's one of the most important things, that indeed it provides a thread, a glue of continuity across, organizations, because the journey of that end user is not broken up into functions. That journey is just a journey that I want when I come to buy something, say on Amazon. I don't care. Amazon has these functions and each one of them is doing a little bit for this journey that I have. So the design team is who can, hold together that whole journey and get all functions together so that my journey as the end user is delightful and not broken.
Apal, I have another one here.
Absolutely, and I...
Oh, sorry.
No, I said I really liked your, the way you put it, Eriko, that it's actually that's the truth also, right? When Apala talked about integrated design, right? I mean, we're talking about service design, we're talking about systems design, we're talking about design, and I think that, like you rightly said, Eriko, I think is one of the very important aspect of design, right? How do you bridge all these gaps in the organization? And I think that can be a game changer by itself, because as we work with organizations, we realize that people usually tend to work in silos. And when we are, connecting these silos, there is a lot more value addition that is happening. There is a potential for innovation, right? Because when you see it as a whole, yes. And over to you, Eriko. You were saying something.
No, that's right. So I was just asking my Apala if you have some example to share of, let's say, if you a quality as a design leader that you must have when you need to negotiate to get some buy-in, so you can get more traction on the initiatives that you're dealing with your team, for example.
Yeah. So in my experience, what has really helped is you have to always be putting together some little anecdotes that represent some successes that you've had. There are, daily little successes that one has with one's design team, but nobody's aware of them. Nobody knows that. Everybody sees an ultimate result and, oh, this was amazing. But the little things that, because we use a design process, because we are designers, there have been these little interesting epiphanies and ways we have cracked the problem. So to keep those little anecdotes almost in one's back pocket and be able to, when one is in a meeting with, say, people, very senior stakeholders from other functions, to be able to pull those out and tell the story of how this supply chain, system that we are crafting, this is how on this day, this is what happened. This was the problem in front, and this is how we looked at it.
So what you're saying about, oh, sorry.
Yeah. So I was just saying that storytelling of real incidents gets a lot of attention.
Okay, so what you're saying is that during the whole process, to build a case for design leadership in organizations, we should get this really this little insights and moments that you get along the journey, put it all together in a way and tell the story.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And if those anecdotes, if they are powerful, some, 1 month later, somebody will tell you that anecdote saying, I heard this from my manager. And it's like, then you're successful because that was your anecdote. Now that has gone around the whole organization. So
Apala, the last one here, Vanita, because I'm getting excited as well. So Apala, you also
Please
have,
go ahead.
How do you actually create the routine, or you build rituals? So for every time that we finish a project or we finish something, we can get these insights and put somewhere, like we build some kind of insights orchestration, or how actually you can create an environment for that to happen? Because in the end of the day, we keep doing one thing and another thing and another thing, and we pretty much don't build any case study that we can show or tell the story. We left to the last minute. So how that can work actually better, so that we can build the case for the design leadership in organizations?
So, one of the things that has worked is if you tie in these insights, these incidents, to be able to record them by anybody, not just whoever is the design leader, but other team members, because ultimately that's how you gather everything. Record them so that they can talk about it in their own performance review. That works really well, because then everybody records, everybody puts it down. And if your format of that final performance review is that every person is going to be able to share, is going to be able to present their journey and anecdotes in the year. It's not the traditional, okay, did I meet my OKRs and all? No, it's, I'm a designer. This is what happened in my journey in building this thing along with the rest of the team. that is amazing. What happens then is, as somebody's noting it down, including if I'm the design leader, I'm doing that for myself also. As one is noting it down, you celebrate those moments. You know, you're noting it, but you're also like, hey, team, you know what? Don't you think this was amazing what we just did? And that becomes the memory, and nobody forgets it. You don't forget. And then you string it together, and you know, it's out there whenever you need to. So I've seen so many anecdotes that I didn't know, but team members have recorded because they want to talk about it in their reviews. So yeah.
That's amazing. So much wisdom, Apala. Thank you so much. Juanita?
Yeah, thanks, Pala and Eriko. That was like a, you know, a really good question that kind of summarized everything. And also, you know, I think Apala, you really shared a lot of wisdom. Now, before I take the audience question, I'd just like to, you know, quickly summarize it for the benefit of all those who have attended. I think it was a lot. And we can unpack more from what you've said. And I think 1 hour is really not enough for the whole for this kind of a discussion. But quickly, you know, in terms of building awareness, in terms of implementing in projects, which is experimentation, which is in terms of reiterating, right? I mean, to see how you can actually, what learnings you have and how can you actually, and being at it until we are able to build design as an integral part of wherever we are in the organization. Because I think some of us are designers, you know, maybe at a fresher level, and there are limitations around what we can do, but at each stage, what can we do to create, you know, that push to kind of push the needle, and also to be able to speak business language, to be able to think, you know, in terms of an organization, at an organizational level. How does it add value, not just to my customers, but in terms of the businesses that we are serving? How can I actually push the needle? Which services can I integrate? Where can I take design? I mean, to other disciplines within the organizations. So these are all, I think, very, very valuable insights that you've given us, and also the ability to customize it. I mean, so it's not like one size, there's no one standard framework or one size fits all, but to be able to customize it based on the businesses that we are, you know, working with, and to be able to recraft, to be able to, you know, show businesses the real value of business, of design through metrics, through you know, success parameters, through processes, through systems that we built in, being, you know, so at each stage, I think as we move from being a practitioner to a design leader, I think these are all other aspects that we should probably add on to our remit of just being, you know, a designer. And I think that will really clearly raise the impact of design in the long term. And education, of course, plays a very critical role in everything. And also Eriko's question and your answer about how do we do it on a, you know, regular basis. And I think that kind of nailed it. It was a lot, and thank you so much for the wisdom. But before I let you go, Apala, and hand it over to Eriko, there's one question from Jelena, which I'd like to present. How do we, you know, could you please share your knowledge in terms of organizational leadership and how to implement in a small organization, particularly marginalized community? And that's a brilliant question, because I think we've spoken more about, you know, a conventional organization, but what do we do in smaller organizations where probably there is lack of budget, or it's, you know, it's in a marginalized setting? That's a very good question, I would think. What's your response, Apala?
Yeah, that's fascinating. And that's an area very close to my, you know, sort of my heart. That's my individual sort of passion area. So one of the things that has, you know, worked well and is also the topic of my ongoing PhD is, how do you have ways in which you can do design and convince the leadership of small, even non-profit organizations that work with, you know, a lot of in areas and communities that are so important, but there's always a constraint in terms of resources of any kind, as well as people who are there. So I've been looking at methods to be different. So for example, working with tribal community in central India, with an NGO actually, to understand the problem statement was that the tribal community is feeling that they are being really not listened to. They don't have a voice or a way to, present their own, articulate their own thoughts and their views. It's not there, firstly, because their language is a language that just doesn't seem to exist in the mainstream Indian consciousness. So they speak a language called Gondi, and it's not there. So how do they don't get content that's in their language? How do they speak? Nobody recognizes it. So the first thing was for the NGO to, if they were very interested in using design and research, how do you do this in this kind of a scenario? We started to look at, why not use things like WhatsApp to do research? We don't have to always have research where we have to, have a facility where we will bring people in and we will sit there. There is a time and place where that needs to be done, but that shouldn't stop us from being able to connect with communities where that kind of thing is maybe not even needed. So we did a whole round with WhatsApp. And WhatsApp, the advantage is you can record a voice message. So the communication can be in the language of the tribal person, who the first step in the design program was we have to understand them. How do we do that? With the constraints, etc., and improvising with WhatsApp, doing the research back and forth in the language and verbally, so that the tribal person could also respond easily without having to, because literacy is a problem, but speaking is not a problem. And so improvising on that got us so much sort of deep insight about what was needed. So the start was a big, we could start with a big bang. And then at every step, we improvised the method and asked different questions, saying, no, we don't have to use the methods we use in traditional user-centered design or design thinking. It's let's improvise. So I would say, Jelena, one of the major things is to improvise on the design process and find ways in which in that situation, you can build the connection with the community and in a manner that's practical and cost effective. And there is always a way to do that. So that's my experience that I'm happy to share with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Apala. That was, I don't have words, but it was a really insightful session, and your passion and, your work and everything comes through very well. And I'm going to hand it over to Erico now for any questions that he may have, or to take it on from here. Erico, over to you. And thank you, Nikos, for facilitating this wonderful session.
I just wanted to say one last thing, that, this is something that actually is from a different, it's a quote in a different situation, but I've always found this useful when I'm speaking with designers, because we meet a lot of points in our journeys which are frustrating. We are not being listened to, we are being sidelined, etc., right? I've had situations, where stakeholders have said, now they don't dare to, but at a point they've said, oh, you're a designer, you don't understand anything with numbers, right? So, okay, we'll translate all this for you. Or even yeah, you're a designer, your blue hair and all, I'm sure you're more concerned with color and what you're going to color your hair next, and you won't understand this. And it used to make my blood boil, but I now I have ways of saying, don't say that, because you know what, I do understand this and whatever. But so I tell designers, don't let anyone turn your sky into a ceiling. And it's not my quote, I heard it somewhere in a gender specific.
A good one, eh?
Yeah. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, Paula, thank you so much, Vanita, as well. Guys, I think we learned so much in the past minutes, yeah. And wow, such beautiful. Thank you so much. I personally I'm mind blown here. I'm really going to be following you more on LinkedIn. And yeah, thank you so much, Apala, for such much wisdom shared. And yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. In the name of Ecos. And Vanita, thank you very much as well.
Thank you. I so enjoyed this session. So thank you very much, Ecos. Thank you, Vanita. Thank you, Eriko. It was wonderful. I really had a good time. So,
I think so too. And I'm actually meeting Eriko for the first time, and it's such a pleasure meeting you, Eriko. Great to meet you, and hope, we have more sessions coming up and more fun coming up.
Thank you so much, and thank everyone that attended today and sent the questions. And yeah, so was just beautiful. I'm going to just double check here with you guys about the design leadership, which is an exclusive course for design and innovation. I'm just going to put it again, remind you guys that it's going to start in 2 weeks. Pretty much time. It's going to start on the 9th of May to the 3rd of August. We're going to have global masterclasses Monday, 6 a.m. or 7 p.m. New York City. You can participate live or you can watch it because everything will be recorded. We're going to also be having local workshops on Wednesday evenings in the specific region. We got a gift for you, which you're gonna have a special code if you have 15% off if you get the code here. And and if you guys wanna you have any questions about anything on the design leadership course, please reach me out. My email is just over there. It's ericolisboa@ecos.cc. You can also download our ebook for the design leadership, which this ebook is amazing and covers some of the topics that we discussed here today. And I guess that's it, my friends. Please, guys, share the comments. Follow me on LinkedIn, Vanita, Paula, and guys, thank you so much for today. I wish you guys all a really good weekend. We're gonna have a holiday here in Australia on Monday, so it's gonna be a long week for us. And yeah, I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for your time. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone who was here.
Bye-bye.
Good weekend.
See you guys.
Good weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.